think it's recording. This is just going to be how these all start. Hey everybody, welcome back to Chippa in the third person. Today I'm in my car, but I am not driving because I'm going to read some stuff, and I figured 15 different tasks was a bit too many, so that's where I draw the line. If I'm ever in here juggling 8, fucking bag them up, as Mitch Hedberg would say. Anyway, first, just to let you guys know, this is Chippa in the third person. This is my video journal, video log kind of thing. I took the weekend off, but I'm gonna try to do this daily or every other day or something. You guys seem to like it, so again, that's patreon.com/thechippa. I produce my 4 podcasts: Creating Geeks, the Chipman Brothers Tangent, the Talkbuster Podcast, and Shooting the Shit with Chippa, where you get one of each a month, or at least 4. You get 4 podcasts a month. It's not always one of each. Hope you enjoy that. That's completely funded by that Patreon. And if you guys think that no money goes into this, it does. And time is also money because it keeps me from my family and my day job, but it's also some extra cash to, help those things work out. So thank you all so much, as I always say. Also, some thoughts to start the day before I get into what I'm going to be talking about. If you think that doctors and parents decide to kill babies after they're born and wrapped up and handed to them, and then they decide, there's something really wrong with you. And if you actually don't think that, but you're trying to scare people into thinking that, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. So stop. And people listening to this that might think that's true, it's not true. That's murder, and it's not legal, and it doesn't happen. So anyway, on to bigger and better things. I'm going to start out by saying I'm going to attempt to redact anything that can be considered a major spoiler for Avengers Endgame, which, I want to say, holy shit. I did that video, the first episode of this last week, talking about community and how movies like this and events like this bring us all together. They brought us together to the tune of $350 million in the United States, and to the tune of $1.2 billion worldwide, which is the quickest either of those two numbers have ever been hit. $60 million Thursday pre-screenings, and you think, oh, you got to see it for free early. I saw it on Saturday, so I've seen this movie twice. It was great both times. But, that's just amazing. I mean, think about that. Me and you, if you're listening to this, have probably never met each other. This movie, this event ties us together. This is, episode 1, episode 7, Fellowship of the Ring, Return of the King, level, just bringing people together with a movie. And, you might say, okay, well, the little art films should get their chance. Well, movies like this, making this much money, yeah, okay, this feeds the massive corporate entity that's Disney and, all that other stuff. But it was still a competently made movie where people got paid and people had jobs, and this is a wonderful thing. And it's going to, for every big success like this, it gives people money to make chances on smaller stuff, and I mean that. You can't have one without the other, unfortunately. I wish you could. So I think this is a wonderful thing, and I think being sarcastic about it, being cynical about it, like I said before, is just, what's the point? You enjoy it or you don't enjoy it. The IMDb pages are already starting to fill up with people ripping the movie apart for plot loopholes and things like that, which is fine. Be a gatekeeper. But I don't like it. I think it's a crappy way to live. But if that's what gets you off and that's what you enjoy doing, sweet. But don't do your thing over here. Doesn't mean that someone that enjoys it over here is any less of a person, any less of a geek, any less belonging because they don't agree with you, is what I'm getting at. And this movie's, one of the most critically acclaimed and audience acclaimed. It is the most audience acclaimed, from the numbers, movie we've ever had. Critically acclaimed. It's one of the tops. This is a wonderful thing, a wonderful event. So I asked my Twitter followers, because I wanted to flood, or be at least part of, I can't really flood, I don't have that kind of reach, but I wanted to be part of, and whether it's a positive or a negative take on the movie, that's not necessarily my concern. Just part of realizing that people are talking about this, people are going. This isn't a conspiracy with bought out theaters and no one's showing up. This is real people that saw my post about DMing me reactions to Avengers Endgame, and that's why I say again, I'm going to say it, spoiler warning. I'm going to try to remove things that could be considered, oh my God, big spoilers. But if you don't want to know anything more, then there's a movie called Avengers Endgame coming out. And you haven't even watched any trailers, so you don't know which cast members are even shown in the trailers, then you might want to step away and wait till you see the movie. And I mean it. This is not an attempt to get you or have your YouTube algorithm flooded with spoilers to spoil you. I'm telling you up front, I'm going to be talking about things that happened in Avengers Endgame. It's been 3 days since it's come out. More people than have ever seen a movie have seen it. So I'm assuming if you're watching this, you've either seen it or you're accepting the fact that you're going to hear stuff about the movie that you don't want to hear. And with that, here we go. And again, these aren't in any order. I just took them off my DMs and popped them on here. So, at Noblekind92 says, Endgame reaction. Thought it was good. Thank God for that fucking rat that brought Redacted back. Holy fuck, that third act. Literally clapped when Redacted lifted Redacted and got chills when he said the line. I agree. And of course, Giant Man punching the Redacted, chef kiss. Okay. I agree with both of those statements. Those were amazing moments. At Murdoch283. Oh my God, remember the part where Ant-Man, I redacted it before, but I'll say it now. They've shown him in the trailers. And when Captain America said the line, and in the last scene when Captain America, that was so good. So Murdoch283 redacted his own stuff for me. And I agree, all of those things, because I know what they are so good. At Paul Shelton. How's it going, Paul? Avengers Endgame reactions. The best finale for a 22 episode serialized story ever. True. I mean, have we ever had 22 episode serialized stories of anything else? I mean, I guess this goes in with television shows like Doctor Who, Battlestar Galactica, things like that. So, I mean, from everything I've seen, I would agree. I've definitely never seen a film that pays off for films, especially films that, as you've probably heard other people say in their reviews, were loosely tied together. I think that's the brilliance of the MCU, is that you got Batman versus Superman, Justice League, the Spider-Man, not the Spider-Man Spider-Verse, because that worked quite well, but the Spider-Man thing they were trying to set up in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, they came at that from seeing that Marvel had already started tying their loose ends together and picked a direction and said, okay, we need to do all of that. Whereas Marvel, you know, they smatter these Infinity Stones, they try this, they try that, and I think by maybe Thor: The Dark World is when they finally committed to, okay, this Infinity Saga is the story we're telling. But this movie does so much to go back to those things that were either kind of loose or redacted or kind of diminished and moved this way, and it lifts them. The movies you like the least, and you can probably imagine what those ones are. I don't have to say it because I don't think there's any bad movies in this franchise, but there's some that you can like less. They physically speak to in this. They literally do it, and they go back and elevate them and make them more important to the story, or at least pay off things that were started in them. And that's amazing, in my opinion, for a movie that has so much to get through and so much to live up to after how they left things in Infinity War, that it spends its first half basically being small and quiet and calm and all about character interaction. And I think that's amazing. So now we have Arturo Garza Flores at Arthur Crane. I'm going to attempt to get through. Arthur was so excited about the movie that he gave me a lot of blurbs. And you know what? I told you I'm going to say them, so I'm going to get through them. But there's just a lot here. So I'm going to start with the things he said at the end. I'm going to leave this one out because this is redacted. So it's so happy Redacted survived the snap. That you'll see. I'm a little surprised that Thanos' exit was so sudden at the beginning of the film. So this is a spoiler, but it's not, you know. For the talk about what he believes is right for the universe, there's no real counter to his ideology other than just kicking his ass. Maybe that's for the best, as it makes his philosophy look like what it truly is. Only madness. Now, I talked to someone recently about... I believe it was the last episode I was in, the Spielberg Smackdown, which you guys should be checking out. If you've only seen the first part, there are two parts. They're both long. We're going to fix the format, but this is the Geeks with Shields, Spielberg Smackdown. I was on there. It's amazing. And you should check it out because you need to see if AI is going to win. Anyway, back to my thoughts there. They talked about a movie, it was The Man Who Shot Hitler and Killed Bigfoot. And they said there's a line in the movie, and I am paraphrasing here because I don't remember exactly what it was. It said, by the time I killed Hitler, he was only a man, and I didn't kill the idea. And I think that's really, really important with Thanos' arc here. Is Infinity War is Thanos' film. Infinity War is giving you all of the backstory you need to know for Thanos. It's a movie about a villain, and what a ballsy thing to do. This movie is about the fallout of what Thanos did. It's not really about Thanos. It's about his fallout. So I think how things play out early in the film with him is very important because we've already seen him showboat. It would just be repetition at that point. So I believe that. Now, this would be a spoiler to tell you that a character survived the snap that I don't think you want to know going in. So I'm just going to say that one of the Avengers starts a family. And in some time passing, and I'll just leave it at that, after Thanos' snap. And it adds a big backbone to if we find a way to reverse this, if we ever even could, what about what we have now? Will we lose what we have now? It's a very incredibly deep moral and ethical question that this movie asks, this existential question, and it spends a decent amount of time with it, of characters kind of being, hey, I've moved on. It's such a crazy thing to think about, and that's one of the central arguments. We go into this movie and remember the events of Civil War, the events of Infinity War, the stuff all the way back from Age of Ultron with Tony Stark. You don't just snap your fingers and all of a sudden you're okay with all of that, right? There's damage that's been done between these people. And just because they've attempted to survive the end of the world and failed, basically, or the end of half the universe, doesn't all of a sudden, make them automatically all better. And I think I love that the most about these movies, is that, especially the Avengers ones, is that as you jump between movies, it's not a reset button. Like, people continue their thoughts and their feelings from other films. I do want to say I'm going into a little bit of depth off these blurbs, but you're not going to get my official review, like what I actually think of the film, until later this week when you hear me review it with the Geeks with Shields folks on their podcast dropping later in the week. And you're not going to hear where I rank it in the MCU until that podcast. That's where I'm going to reveal that, because frankly I don't know. It's at the top. It's in the top 10, top 5 probably. I just don't quite know where. Think about it. Try to break down the MCU to a top 5. It's really freaking tough. So there you go. More from Arthur. I feel like future movies could do well in exploring a little more about what happened during the time skip. I'm not going to tell you how long, but there is a time skip in this movie. What happened in Wakanda, for instance? Was there a new king during those 5 years? Because remember, we saw Black Panther disappear. I'm not going to tell you if he comes back or not. Is it implied that Okoye was in charge the whole time? I love how all 6 main Avengers go through a big change. Okay? And I'm not going to tell you exactly what they say, but there's some incredible stuff with Bruce Banner, with the Hulk, that they do that they're not showing in any of the trailers. There's some stuff you probably see in the trailers with Hawkeye that's very interesting. I will say this, it's great to see Captain America's big change is that he drops a lot of S-bombs. She says shit a lot, son of a bitch. It's kind of showing that Steve, the goody two-shoes thing, is dropping off. And you know what? I'll say this, because you've seen this from the trailers in how meetings, if you've seen them, are being led. Black Widow takes a bit of a leadership role here. And I've always really liked Scarlett Johansson as an actress. Lost in Translation was and still is one of my favorite movies, and I think she's fantastic in it. But there's a big group of people, and I won't say that she gets kind of lost, but she hasn't really been in a leadership role up to this point, and seeing her kind of take on like the weight of being, you know, the Captain America figure in the group while they're all kind of recovering and refiguring out what the world is like after Thanos is a really cool thing to see, and I think she gives it a lot of emotion that's really missing. Let's see. I'm not going to blow that, so I'll leave that one out. I'm not going to blow that, so I'll leave that out. There's an audible gasp when somebody picks up blank. Truly incredible moment. It's just wonderful. Don't let people blow that for you. I've probably said enough already. You know, there's obviously, not a spoiler to say there's a final battle in this film. There's always a final battle in one of these movies, and they've blown a lot of it. This is the best action sequence in one of these movies in terms of sheer scope and in terms of sheer character beats since the Battle of New York in Avengers. So, there you go. I maintain that Brie Larson as Captain Marvel is the best, but I feel we only get a glimpse of what makes her, as she's been hyped by Kevin Feige, the strongest MCU hero so far, though it's understandable why all the big moments go to the main cast. And that is very important. That's not to say, oh, your theories about them not getting along with Captain Marvel and Brie Larson. They filmed the bits in this movie, from what I've read, on green screen before they even finished filming Captain Marvel. And it gives her kind of an alien feel. She's kind of there as a heavy to show up and, you know, help beat the shit out of stuff, but she's not essential to the plot, as it were. And I think that's important. We just gave her own whole movie that tells you about her. Bring it back to the core cast. She's going to be here for a bit. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot to do in the celestial side of things, and that's where Captain Marvel is more important, so I agree with that. And I'm not going to go into things to tell you who comes back and who dies, because that would just be bad. K-Spaz13, Kurt Duncan. My Endgame reaction is, damn, it's hard to get tickets. I was sick this week, so we didn't buy tickets in advance. So my illness is making me wait a few extra days. Sorry, buddy. At Kidder83. The most popcorn flick I've ever seen. While not able to stand on its own, I guess I agree with that. It still stands taller than most and is 100% worth seeing in theaters. I 100% back that up. 4.2 out of 5. At Super the Andres, Andy Rodriguez. For the first time since maybe the first Avengers, it feels like there's closure in one of these movies. In the best way, I'm not dying to know what happens next. That is very important. We know there'll be a next. We know that this being the end of the Avengers franchise is not necessarily the truth. But we also know that we could walk away from this and have a complete story. And I agree with that. At Creeper223, Gordon Becker. I loved this entire beautiful movie. Several parts had me reaching for tissues, and its ending felt like a great ending for this part of the MCU. I agree with the tissues thing. Remember, I've talked about the Guardians of the Galaxy movies hit me the hardest emotionally, because they speak to very specific things that are important to me right now and I've had trouble with. They speak to loss of a parent. There's some things in here involving someone having a little girl, and she reminds me a lot of my daughter, and it just breaks me. Not necessarily that it's sad. It's like happy tears, a lot of it, or earned, like, emotional beats of people reacting to something else that's happened. That just, it feels like they connect a lot more than they have in other films. There's not a lot in this character-wise. It feels like going through the motions. It feels like they were obligated to do it. It feels earned. At ATD David Odell. Avengers Endgame left me emotionally drained, but in a good way. I laughed. I held back very dignified tears, and damn near jumped out of my seat more than once. It's one of those movies I wish I could see again for the first time. I agree, but I'll say this, seeing it twice, it did not lose anything in the second viewing. I knew what was coming, so I could be a little bit more prepared, and could catch some more subtle things going on, but holy crap, this movie, for 3 hours long, this is a multi-view kind of a thing, and I mean it. At Jack Says Go, Jack Hoskinson. This is an Endgame response, by the way. I recognized I probably should have opened with that. I like reading that first because the other one was great. I feel entirely fan-serviced. You. Or, whatever you're into, man. I agree. Mr. O'Domino. This is the movie we've all been waiting for. I left the theater feeling more satisfied than I thought possible. There are moments in the film we have been waiting to see for years, and they nail them. I agree. This is from at Louisville, who's my cousin. Hey. I loved every minute of it. Didn't expect to cry so much at the end. Truth be told, Paul cried way more than I did. I love that I landed me a man who has not an ounce of toxic masculinity in his body. And I agree, Paul is one of the best people. But my biggest takeaway is that this movie was a huge FU to the mouth-breathing, misogynist, racist fan base that has been so vile at every turn. In both the MCU and Star Wars and a lot of other things. That's my addition, by the way, if you didn't know. In the end, a band of women came together to help save the day. Thanos had to remove the Power Stone just to get Carol off of him. And she bounced back. These are great moments. I'm going to redact this next point because it's a big spoiler for the end of the movie and people that lived and died. And it seems like all of Wakanda showed up to the fighting. Take that, you disgusting excuses of bro fans. I can't love these turns of events more. Say hi to the rest of your family for me. Thank you. That's a good one. It's actually my favorite blurb on here. At Hilford G. I'm sorry I don't have a blurb, just thoughts. Okay? The only expectation I had was that everyone would be undead. I'm not going to say if his expectation is met or not. Because the intro was so unexpected, it just dropped us straight into the film. Yeah. The intro of this is fucking harsh, and it's not what you expect. As soon as you see who it's involved, you know exactly where it's going. But it's like a horror movie where you know the killer is behind the door and you're just waiting. That kind of thing. Did you learn everything you know about time travel from Back to the Future? You know they cut the line, no, Back to the Future too. I agree. No betting on sporting events. I'm not going to blow that one because that says stuff about who lives and dies. I was hoping Captain Marvel would have a man-baby line for Thanos. That would be amazing. Time wizards are the best. They really are. If they didn't mention it in Infinity War, Ned definitely survived the snap, and you could tell when he ran into Peter Parker in the hallway. I cried. So we know there's another Spider-Man movie coming, so it's not a huge spoiler to tell you Peter Parker comes back. His reunion moment with his friend Ned at school is fantastic. That's not a huge plot point. We know it's coming, but again, I'm sorry if that pisses you off. Holy shit, all the cool stuff they retconned in during time travel. I agree. Things I'm telling you, because you've probably heard by now there's time travel or can tell from the trailers, they literally drop you back into events from films you didn't like so much and fix it. It's very similar to what they did in Days of Future Past, only this series doesn't suck. I don't like the X-Men movies very much anymore. I don't know what this means, so I'm going to leave it out. Love Hilford. And this is the guy that pointed out the number of people in the IMDb goof section that didn't understand how the time travel worked, and this is astounding. I mean, flat out, Tilda Swinton explains you flat out how the time travel is going to work in this and how it affects events. But that's okay. I don't get it. It did take a little bit of thinking afterwards to piece a few things together, but they do a pretty good job. Green Goblin, who you've heard on my show before. Bigger crowd experience in Episode 7 or Return of the King. I think I agree with that. Holy crap, you're right. The entire audience cried and applauded at multiple scenes. I also agree. This shit was a religious event, dude. Well, that shit was a religious event, dude. I want to make sure I got these correct. I agree. At Cal Body. Endgame works as an introspective love letter to the characters that bolster the MCU. Less so when it tries too hard to pander. creates more questions than answers for an apparent finale with a surplus of convenience and plot holes. Happy to be surprised by some turns. 3 out of 5, C+. See, I told you these weren't all going to be 100% positive. Thank you. I'll have to think about that a little bit. Maybe we can have a conversation about it sometime. I don't necessarily agree that convenience and holes were as big as maybe some people are saying, but with any movie that's kind of structured like this, I mean, sure, let's talk about it. At Master, aka Jack, the Electric Skull. Avengers Endgame is an epic in every sense of the word, an emotionally fulfilling climax that every Marvel fan should adore. I mean, I agree. And Gordon Becker at Creeper223. I think I already had him on here. We can talk again. I was blown away by the movie. It did not feel 3 hours long. Several scenes had me reaching for tissues because they got me good. I agree. So that's my collection. You've now been immortalized on this YouTube video. Thank every single one of you. And I know I put a deadline of Sunday night, but keep sending me your reactions as you see them. I'll keep peppering them throughout these videos because I think this is a great open forum, open discussion to have. As we see Endgame, let's celebrate Endgame. Even if you didn't like it, it's hard to not admit how important this achievement is. And, enough people went and saw it. We'll see if the numbers continue. I have a feeling people are going to be going back because I went back and I thought it was great. So, other than that, I'll look forward to talking to you guys when I do the next one of these. And happy Endgame. And check out the Geeks with Shields podcast later in the week to hear my full thoughts and review. I'll catch you guys on the other side. Bye.